Hi, you're listening to Book Chat with author Vivian E. Moore.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's episode. We really appreciate you joining us. This podcast really shows us how we can all learn, live, and thrive off of each other. By sharing our knowledge through our conversations, we will impart some knowledge whilst learning ourselves how to progress even further. Here is your host.
Hello and welcome to Book Chat. I am your host, author Vivian E. Moore. Hope everyone had a great week, and I hope that you are having an even better weekend. This is Easter Sunday weekend, so I hope that you are planning to have a special gathering with your family and let it start with worship and then end with a good meal at the end of the day. All right, so let's get to today's show, shall we? All right, so the title is Bait and Switch, and the topic is when the story doesn't live up to the book cover. Now, how many of those books have we all read or picked up and looked at and flipped through and said, oh, wait a minute now, this cover suggests one thing, but what I'm reading suggests something else. And so, because we've all been drawn in by a book cover that promises one thing, it may be an intense thriller or a sweeping romance or either a whimsical fantasy only to crack it open. And then guess what? Something completely different is written on those pages. Okay, that is a classic bait and switch scenario. And for readers, it can be frustrating, first of all, misleading, and then sometimes even enough to make them put that book down altogether. And we don't ever want that to happen. Okay, once they get those books in their hands, we want them to hold on to it, purchase it, read it so they can review it. All right. Now, let's talk about judging a book by its cover. Woo! Don't we do that? Yes, we do. We all do it. Despite that old saying, everyone judges books by their covers, those covers, they serve as a book's first impression because they signal that genre tone. And then it also targets the audience, okay? Because that's what you're trying to draw by using those book covers. You want to draw a certain audience because they tell readers, what kind of journey they're about to embark on. It may be one of those dark, moody covers with all of that sharp typography that hints at a tense thriller, okay? Or it could even be one of those pastel illustrations talking about Easter and all those beautiful pastel colors. But with those playful fonts that suggest a light-hearted rom-com. Or it could even be all of those rich, intricate fantasy covers that evoke that it's going to be a major adventure, okay? But when a book's cover doesn't align with this cover, when a book's content doesn't align with this cover, it can feel like a betrayal, right? Because readers expect one kind of story and then they end up with something completely different, which can be shocking and it can also lead to disappointment. And we don't want that to happen. We want our readers to be happy with what's on the outside and also on the inside. So first of all, this is not some type of oversight or some type of mistake. This is something that publishers do all the time. Now let's talk about why do publishers do this? Well, because the book industry is competitive, first of all. And so the publishers, they use the cover design as a powerful marketing tool. Okay, that's like book marketing 101, all right? And then sometimes what this means is that, making a book look like a bestseller in a trending genre, even if it doesn't fully belong there. And, so that's why they do it in most cases. And another few of the common reasons for mismatched covers, it includes this. First of all, is capitalizing on those trends that we just talked about. Because, again, a book might have a dark academia aesthetic, or it could even have a romance style of illustrated cover, because those trends sell, okay? And even if the story doesn't fit, it may have that type of cover because they're trying to capitalize on those trends. All right, reason number 2, they may be trying to rebrand that book for a different type of audience, okay? And I know you've seen those kind of books. You may have seen the first edition where it had one book cover, and then maybe the second edition where they actually changed the book cover, okay? Because sometimes books, they get those new covers to attract a different type of demographic, even if it misrepresents the content, okay? We've seen that quite a bit, okay? And then the third reason is they are trying to play up on minor elements that are in those books, because a book might have a romantic subplot, but the readers that are expecting a romance, they may feel like you misled them with that cover, because it makes it look like that they're about to get into a full-blown love story, and that's not the case. Okay, so we've covered that. So now let's talk about when those covers just lie outright. There is nothing in common, and it is a total mismatch. All right. And the first reason is because the thriller that's not thrilling. Okay. So we know that happens when the covers completely lie. That's what you get. It's a thriller that's not thrilling. Nothing is worse than picking up a book with a cover that tells you that this is going to be, just out of this world great. It's going to be something that's fast paced, only to discover that it is a slow, introspective character study. Okay, so that type of book might fly with someone else, and it can also be great, but it is not what a thriller reader signed up for. Okay, they want a thriller that's thrilling. All right, as do we all. Now let's talk about the fantasy that forgets the fantasy. All right. Well, a cover filled with magical creatures and glowing swords, if you're into that, all right, if you're into fantasy, and all of those ethereal landscapes, they set up a certain type of expectation, right? They set up that expectation that it is going to be action-packed, that you're going to have that great fantasy adventure, but then the book turns out to be a quiet political drama with barely any magic, and that will send those fantasy readers just spinning, okay? And of course, they're going to feel cheated because, that cover told them that they were about to get a great fantasy, and actually that is not what they got. Now let's talk about a romance that ain't romancing, all right? And we know how the romance books, they have all of those nice covers with the good-looking couples on the front, or it just may be either a female or a male character that's beautiful, that suggests that it is going to be just a lovely romantic read. When you have all of those swoony couples on the front and all of those cute illustrated designs, because they often indicate that's exactly what you're going to get. You're going to get a lighthearted rom-com, but then if the story is actually about grief and heartbreak or a relationship falling apart, that's going to leave those romance readers looking for a feel-good love story that they didn't get, and they're going to be disappointed. Okay, so you need to make sure that you put it in the you put those little disclaimers in to let them know. Okay, well, the cover may suggest that this is going to be a swoony romance, but actually it's about all the things we just talked about. And so we don't want to do that. All right. So let's talk about now why this matters to readers. Well, it matters because mismatched covers, they don't just lead to minor disappointments. They can actually impact the book's reception and its success. And now let me tell you why. Because reader expectations shape enjoyment. Okay, if you expect a fast-paced thriller but get a slow burn drama, you may not appreciate the book for what it is, even if it is well written. Okay, and then second, negative reviews can follow. Now we've talked about those negative reviews. All right, because readers who feel misled are likelier to leave bad reviews, not because the book is bad, but because it wasn't what they expected. Okay, we don't want to disappoint our readers, all right? And then it can also alienate the right audience. Okay, we want to match the book up with the right audience, but if the cover is misleading, that might attract the wrong readers while deterring those who would love the book. So that's why it's important to make sure that the cover matches the story, because you want to make sure that the genre that you're representing is going to be represented to the readers as well, because certain readers like certain type of genres. Okay. All right. So now let's talk about how to avoid all of this bait and switch trap. Okay. So first of all, you need to look beyond the cover, because the reader has some responsibility also when they're selecting their books. Even if the cover suggests one thing, you need to do your due diligence and actually look past the cover and let that be a lesson to you, because, sometimes, all things are not what they appear to be. So you need to do just a deep dive, just, go through it. And read the synopsis of what the book is supposed to be about and flip through those pages to make sure that matches, okay? Because you need to make sure that synopsis is aligning with what that cover suggests, all right? And then you also need to check the reviews. All right, now I'm not saying that all books have great reviews or have any reviews, because there are a lot of readers who don't actually do verbal reviews, they do stars, okay? And so depending on how many stars you get, that will let you know that this book is good. It's great, because sometimes readers don't know how to really articulate what they've read. And so in order to not sound like they are not intelligent, they star the book, or either they read so many books to where they don't have time to just give those in-depth reviews. They just star them. All right. So, but anyway, you need to check those reviews, because, other readers, if they've already read the book, they will often point out if a book cover is misleading. Let me tell you, they will do that. Okay. And then again, like I told you before, you need to sample the first chapter. You can do that without actually buying the book. You can sample the first chapter, because this would give you a better idea of the book's tone and also that style before you fully commit to that book. All right. So these are my final thoughts overall. Now writers know that book covers are powerful, right? That's why you have a book cover. If you just have a book with nothing on the front of it, I don't think you're going to get many sales on that book, because it's not telling the readers anything. So that's why book covers are powerful. But when they don't match the story that's inside, they can lead to confusion and frustration, and even the book being unfairly judged. And we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that, that we're getting those judgments right, making sure that they are appropriate. And then while covers are meant to sell books, they should also be honest about what the readers can expect, okay? Because at the end of the day, the best reading experiences, they come from books that deliver exactly what they promise, okay? And if you've ever fallen for a bait and switch book cover, share your experience in the comments, please. And don't forget to listen, like, and share, because that is also important. And you can give me stars too if you like the content of my podcast. I try to come through with things that are useful and not so much trendy, but just if you're starting out as a new writer and you're not quite sure where you need to dive in, these episodes that I bring to you on a weekly basis are quite helpful in doing that, okay? Because it gives you an outlook on what to expect and really how to get started, how to dive in. All right. So again, this is Resurrection Sunday. This is coming up tomorrow. I hope you will go out and worship with your family and, have those get-togethers, because that's very important. And also it's important to tell those those who you care about, how much you feel about them. I'm getting tongue-tied today, because tomorrow is not promised. So make sure that you do that. And on that note, I love you. I hope you love me back. Until the next time you hear my voice, God bless you and goodbye.
Loved what you've heard on this week's episode? Well, the answer is simple. It would mean the world to us if you could head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review and feedback. Spreading the word really is the best way to grow our podcast and achieve even greater things. Thank you.